Because whether it's urban experiences or corporate tourism, the question becomes the same. Who really benefits? Investors and visitors or the locals who have lived here for their lives?
Sometimes the best talks happen when you're just hanging out.
Whether it's by the beach, on the road, or over coffee, we're here with you. I'm Mira.
This is Jadyn.
I'm Shady.
And I'm Gian.
This is
Talk to Go.
Baby, come and be with me tonight. I don't wanna come across impolite, but I'm ready. Hey, baby, come and show me how it's done. It's just you and me, one on one, nice and dirty. Late nights on the sofa.
Nothing beats this view. The city breeze and the fresh air feels like the perfect spot to talk about something real, right guys?
Yeah, totally. I could literally stay here forever. Well, if only the rent didn't keep going up every year.
Right. Every time we come by, new condos, new cafes are popping in. Even the beach right now are not cheap anymore.
And that's where gentrification
Oh,
starts.
really?
Yeah.
You know, every city wants to improve, bring in new money, better infrastructure, that clean modern aesthetic.
But when profit clashes with people, when paradise is packaged for visitors instead of the locals who called it home, and when nature is pushed aside for development, we have to stop and ask ourselves, is that progress for local Filipinos? Or is it progress made for the wealthy, the investors, or the tourists? Or is this kind of development even sustainable? Is it good for the environment? Is it good for the people who live here year round?
Or is development for foreign tourists really worth the displacement of our own communities?
Which bring us to the core of today's episode, gentrification. What it really matters, why it happens, and how it affects both the places we love and the people who built them.
Yeah, but before anything else, just so we're clear, for our listeners, what exactly is gentrification?
So, gentrification is basically when wealthier people move into a neighborhood, raising property values and changing the community, usually at the expense of the folks who have lived here for years.
So basically, the neighborhood gets shiny and modern, and the people who built it are often pushed out. Ouch.
Ouch indeed. But it's not all bad, right? There are some perks to gentrification, if it's done the right way.
Exactly. Think urban renewal. Old neighborhoods get spruced up, and new businesses pop up, parks and roads get cleaned and maintained, and suddenly your area looks, well, Instagram ready.
And economic growth too. Investors come in, property value rises, and that can create jobs, cafes, shops, offices, new opportunities for locals.
Plus, some neighborhoods even became safer. Crime rates often drop because the area becomes more resourced and stable.
And don't forget, guys, more taxes from higher property values can fund better schools, healthcare, and transport. Sometimes even historic buildings get restored instead of torn down. So there's a little culture preservation too, right?
But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's a downside that we can't
Agree.
ignore.
Right. Long term residents can get displaced because rent and property taxes go up. Families have to leave and communities lose their close knit vibe.
And affordable housing disappears. Suddenly, it's harder for people to live near their jobs, schools, or even families.
Cultural erosion happens too. So local tradition and small families businesses starts to fade away. So it's like the soul of the place slowly disappearing.
Yes. So, to add to what Jaden said, social tension can also rise between new and old residents. It can create exclusion, resentment, and even local shops may close because of the rent that skyrocketed and also because of the customers that change.
So basically, gentrification is a double edged sword. Modernization, economic growth, better infrastructure, but at the cost of displacing people, eroding culture, and creating inequality.
And that makes me wonder, Is all this progress really for the local Filipinos, or is it just progress for investors and tourists?
And don't forget, and don't forget who's actually benefiting here, the locals or the folks who just visiting here for a weekend, right? So at first we talk about gentrification in general. Now let's zoom in deeper on what we call profit versus people.
Yeah, so basically it's the tension between the money and the development coming in and the everyday residents who might get left behind. So take Metro Manila as an example. The rapid urban development has bought huge private investments, master planned communities, and new commercial zones. Sounds very exciting, right?
Right.
Yeah, sure. Until you realize that many low income settlers, residents are being evicted, relocated, or just being priced out of neighborhoods they've lived in for years. In fact, research shows that around 37% of Metro Manila residents live in slum areas. As you can see here in the urban displacement project, it's all mapped online and it's really eye-opening.
And here's the thing, the profit from all this new land, property, and businesses mostly goes to the investors and new residents. And meanwhile, the original communities often lose access to affordable housing or even the neighborhoods that they grew up in.
So urban expansion often favors profit over
Yeah.
people. So large scale investments being shiny new spaces, but also displacement and social exclusion.
So
Mhm.
in it's not just about city guys. So the same pattern shows up in tourism hotspots. So places that became tourist magnets see new resorts, restaurants, and service businesses pops up. So tourist brings money, which seems great, but locals can feel the pinch.
Mhm.
Exactly. Many residents end up in low wage, insecure jobs. Housing prices rise, and traditional livelihoods like fishing or small local trade get pushed aside. And if you want the numbers, there's a recent study by Lin, Lee, and Wang in 2023 about tourism driven gentrification. That study really backs this up.
So, when development is focused mainly on tourists and new residents and new wealth, the original residents can face stress, displacement, or exclusion. It's a pattern that we see not just here, but also globally.
So basically, profit goes to investors, developers, and
Yeah.
higher income newcomers, while local communities risk losing their homes, their culture, and livelihoods. And that's why this discussion really matters.
Yeah, it's
So
that.
when the development benefits only a few, inequality deepens. So profit versus people isn't just a catchy phrase. So it reflects a real life choices of communities that face every day.
So the question becomes, do we prioritize quick economic returns and outside investment, or do we design development that includes local communities and gives them free access to affordable housing and jobs and preserves cultural ties?
What do you guys think? Can development actually benefit everyone?
I think it can, right?
I think it can, but it takes careful planning,
Mhm.
community involvement, and policies to protect local from being pushed out.
And also maybe a little less focus on making everything Instagrammable for the tourist.
Yeah.
Right?
So, after looking at how development often prioritizes profit over people, it's clear when communities aren't included in the planning, which only deepens or grows the inequality present.
And that issue isn't only limited to Metro Manila. Even the places we call our paradise, our islands, the tourist spots that are experiencing the same pattern.
Yeah.
Right. Because whether it's urban experiences or corporate tourism, the question becomes the same. Who really benefits? Investors and visitor or the locals who have lived here for their lives?
And that leads us to our next topic, tourism brings opportunity. Sure, it does. It brings jobs, businesses, and growth, but it also brings pressure, like environmental strain, cultural shifts, and even displacement of our own people.
So now the big question is tourism at what cost? All right, let's talk about something closer to the shore tourism, or as we're calling this segment, tourism at what cost? Because paradise isn't as simple as white sand and clear water.
So that's right. Tourism does bring a lot of opportunities. For example, small resorts, guest house, cafes, all popping up in now coastal towns. Jobs in hospitality, serve schools, guided tours, income flows, and where there wasn't much before.
So, take Siargao as an example. Tourist numbers have skyrocketed as it became a global surfing destination. So, a report from Siargao Tourism Futures, it talks about how fast the growth happened in Siargao.
But did you know that that growth comes with serious strains? I mean,
Oh, really?
locals say that the housing costs have gone up and a lot of homes are now for short-term rentals, specifically catered to tourists. And instead of long-term rentals that should be for the local Filipinos or the families that have lived there for many years now. One article even said that the island isn't built for this many people.
And here's
Agree.
the thing, guys Siargao isn't alone. Look at Boracay. The number of visitors climbed so high that the water supply, sewage system, and coral reefs are under threat. There was a study showing that untreated wastewater being dumped into the sea, which eventually
Oh,
led to the island's closure, 6 month closure back in 2018.
Oh,
oh
I
my
heard about
god.
that.
Six
Really?
months?
Yeah.
6 months?
Oh my
And on
god.
top of that, there was a report mentioning a tourist to local ratio of around 66 to 1 in Boracay. So can you imagine living in a place where tourists outnumber you that much?
Oh
That
my god, I
that
can't. Like
pressure
imagine
isn't
speaking
just
English every
environmental,
day.
it's just it affects local lives.
Tourism does bring growth and income, but it also brings displacement, loss of identity, and
Mm.
even environmental damage. And beyond just the scenery, why does this matter?
Because the paradise we romanticize is someone's home, their way
Yeah.
of life, and if tourism makes that home too expensive to live in or turns it into something unrecognizable, then maybe the cost outweighs the benefits.
But here's the thing, not all hope is lost. Some islands are trying to push back. Siargao has now eco resorts and community led programs and conservation efforts to protect nature and culture while still welcoming
Yeah.
visitors.
So the real challenge becomes how do we make tourism sustainable, or how do we make sure locals benefit, culture stays intact, and the natural environment doesn't get destroyed.
Because in the end, paradise shouldn't just survive for the tourists. It should survive for the people who call it home. And now, for the next generation to come.
When we talk about development, new resorts, bigger roads, commercial zones, we often hear the word progress. But in communities where the land, sea, and forest are part of everyday life, progress comes with a question nature versus development. I want to hear your thoughts on this, guys. Can they really coexist?
I think they can, right?
Yeah.
Well, development can definitely bring benefits. For example, better infrastructure, more reliable sources, new jobs, and more access to the markets. So these things really matter. So, but the conflict starts when development happens without considering the environment that
Oh,
supports
yeah.
the community in the first place.
So, like what we've said earlier, take the Boracay as an example. So, study shows a major environmental damage, such as coral cover drop, um, untreated sewage that went straight into the ocean, and the ecosystem was pushed away from its limits. So the island became too popular for its environment to sustain.
And that's not just a Boracay problem. It happens across many Philippine islands.
Yeah.
And because of the tourism pressure, this causes freshwater shortages and waste overload and pollution. So when development doesn't follow the natural limits, the communities end up suffering its side effects.
And the wild thing, guys, is it's not just the tourist spots. Even the small coastal and rural communities can feel the impact too. When nature is treated as something that is exploited rather than preserved, the people who depend on it, such as fishermen, the farmers, or forest gatherers, they lose their main source of livelihood.
Yeah.
So the conflict becomes clear. Nature provides a foundation for these communities, but development, especially fast, profit driven development, can weaken or even destroy that foundation.
But there are examples of development that protects nature. One study that I have read from the San Bernardino island in Sorsogon. So it shows how sustainable tourism can work. So local government and university work together to support community. So it preserves culture, it protects the environment, and it's not that perfect, but it shows that responsible development is also possible.
So the key idea is there should be a local inclusion, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so making sure that the people who live there have a say, that the environmental limits are respected, and that also that the development doesn't just focus on or chase the quick profits of this development, thus which will be um I'm sorry, let me rephrase that.
Oh.
So the development doesn't just chase quick profits and ignore the long-term viability of nature and community.
Yeah, that's right, because when nature suffers, development eventually suffers too.
Yeah.
The beaches, forests, and seas. These are not just background scenery, they're livelihoods, identity, and our culture.
So in our pursuit of progress, we need to ask, are we building on nature or are we building over it? Because if we build over it, we risk losing the very things that make these places worth developing in the first place.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a very strong point.
So, guys, after everything that we've discussed, the booming cities, the shiny cafes, the displaced families, the islands struggling to breathe, it, it brings us to this one big question. Is gentrification a bad thing or a good thing?
I mean, it's very tempting to see it as black and white because development equals progress, resistance equals backwardness, and but the truth is, this is very all complicated. Gentrification can make neighborhoods safer, more connected, more vibrant. It can also create jobs, attract investment, and even restore pride to places that were once overlooked.
But at the same time, it can push out people who built those neighborhoods in the first place. It can price out long-time residents. It can also erase cultures and turn homes into background scenery for people who don't actually belong there. So what's the value of progress if it forces the community to disappear?
Yeah,
Yes.
you
Oh
have a
yeah,
point.
yeah. So maybe the real question isn't if this development is good or bad, but rather who is this development for? Because real development should benefit everyone, not just the investors, the newcomers, or the wealthy.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Gentrification isn't automatically evil, but it's not automatically good either. It depends on how it's managed. When development includes community voices, protects affordable housing, respects culture, and honors the environment, that's when progress becomes shared, not stolen.
Because at the end of the day, communities aren't just buildings or business spaces, they're people. So the challenge is to create progress that doesn't forget its roots.
So maybe the goal isn't to stop change, but to guide it. So to make sure that when change arrives, nobody gets left behind.
Yes.
And that's the kind of progress that we are hoping for. Growth that doesn't come at the cost of belonging and culture and home of our own people. And because in the end, what's the point of a thriving city if the people who made it alive at the first place are forgotten? Right, guys?
Yes. Once again, this is Mira.
JD.
Shady!
And Gian. This is
Talk to Go!
See you on the next episode.
Bye.